Are you looking to build influence? Or maybe to drive more traffic? But bottom line, you want to change the game. You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Business Building Book Club. We're going to give you the tools you need to succeed, both online and in person. Brought to you by Coach Molly and Three Pines Leadership. Welcome back to the Business Building Book Club. I'm your host, Coach Molly from Three Pines Leadership, and thank you so much for joining me. You can find this podcast in podcast form on all of your favorite platforms, as well as in video form on YouTube at Three Pines Leadership. So find us, connect with us, check out all of our episodes. This is season 2 of the Business Building Book Club, and this season we are diving in to the second book in the Russell Brunson Secrets trilogy. We're diving into Expert Secrets, which is, I always have to read it, the Underground Playbook for converting your online visitors into lifelong customers. It's all about the relationship and influence building in this book, and I absolutely love this book. This is the book that ignited it for me, everybody. And I am so excited to read through this here, which is the second edition, the re-release, with tons of new content, including some of the stuff we're going to be reading today. And one of my favorite things about these books are all of the little doodles that Russell's put in. And he's put them in to make all of this content a little bit easier to understand, and so that you can quickly recall these concepts because they're so useful. But I'm not going to read them out and show you them like a kindergarten teacher at story time. No, you're going to have to pick up your own copy to follow along with. And the cool thing is, you can get your own copy for free. All you have to do is pay for the shipping costs, and you can get that copy today at leadershipmade.com/expert-secrets. That's leadershipmade.com/expert-secrets. All right, everyone, we're going to dive in to the first secret in this wonderful book, which is secret number 1, finding your voice. In the second edition hardcover book, this is page number 6. And actually, one more note. This chapter is thick. It's so thick that we're actually going to split it in 2. I'm going to give you the first half of the chapter today, and then next episode, we'll dive into the second half of this chapter. All right, everyone, here we go. Finding your voice. I had heard my mom tell this story dozens of times before, but it was my favorite story. So as she started to tell it to one of her friends again, I stopped everything I was doing so I wouldn't miss a word. "He thought Russell was stupid," she said, talking about my high school guidance counselor. "When we tried to get a letter from him so Russell could apply to Brigham Young University, he told us that Russell was a below-average student, and even if somehow he got accepted, he would never be able to pass the classes, and that he should go to an easier school." And that's when my dad jumped in to tell his favorite part. "So we submitted the paperwork to BYU, and sure enough, a few weeks later we got a letter telling us his grades were too low, and he wasn't accepted. The next month we went to Pittsburgh for the high school national wrestling tournament. You had to be state champion to get invited to this tournament, and it's by far the toughest tournament in the country. Russell's weight class had more than 90 state champions in it. Some states have multiple classes and could send more than one state champion per weight. He wrestled the best tournament of his life, beating multiple 2- and 3-time state champions." Now, this was the part of the story that was my favorite, and I had to jump in. "Dad, do you remember when I pinned the 2-time state champion in the semifinals and we were getting ready for the national finals match? One of the BYU coaches came over to us and asked me if I wanted to go on a recruiting trip to their school?" "Yes, I told him that they had just gotten a letter saying that you weren't accepted, and he smiled and said, 'Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Within a week, you had become a high school All-American. We had your acceptance letter in the mail from BYU. Then my mom jumped back in. But of course, as soon as the guidance counselor found out that you were going to BYU, she came back to me and warned me that you would never last the first semester. Now, as cool as this story already was, my mom was wanting to give her update about what happened almost 15 years later. When I launched .com Secrets, my mom had a job teaching home economics at the same school as the guidance counselor. She finished the story. I took Russell's new book, marched right into the counselor's office, and asked if he remembered telling my son wasn't smart enough to go to BYU, and that he would probably fail after the first semester. He said yes, and so I had to tell him the good news. Well, that son is now a millionaire, and he just launched his first best-selling book, and I wanted to give you a copy. She then did the ultimate mic drop. She left the book on his desk and walked away. I wanted to share that story with you for a few reasons. Besides the fact that the story makes me feel really good about myself and will probably build a deeper connection with some of my readers, I also wanted you to see that I really struggled in school. I wasn't someone who you would ever think would be an expert in anything. I graduated college with a stunning 2.3 GPA. I loved wrestling. And this is the one thing that kept me in school, knowing that if I didn't pass my classes, I didn't get to wrestle. I don't remember liking to read or learn anything that the teachers gave me. And if I'm completely honest, I always thought that I was dumb. It wasn't until the middle of my college career that I started to get exposed to different ideas that they didn't talk about in school. Google was in its infancy back then, and as I searched for and found things that sparked my interest, I discovered that reading became fun. Sleep actually became a burden as my mind raced with possibilities. Somewhere in this season of growth is when I first stumbled upon a small movement of people who were making a living selling things online. That initial spark started my journey to becoming an unlikely expert. Evolution from attractive character to expert. One of my early mentors, Dan Kennedy, taught me that we are all in a relationship business, not a product business. He explained to me that people may come to into your value ladder because of a product, but they stay because of their relationship with you, the attractive character. In .com Secrets, I first introduced the concept of the attractive character and how you use your personality to attract people to you. In this book, I want to help you take you and your relationship with your audience to the next level. Now that you've attracted someone to you, the next level is to lead them to where you want them to go. To become a leader or a guide, you have to grow into an expert. We use the attractive character as the front of our value ladder to bring people into our funnels. But then we, as the experts, are the ones who guide them through our funnels and ascend them up the value ladder. J. Abraham once said, "People are silently begging to be led." And I believe that's very true. We are in the business of attracting our dream customers and then leading them to the results that we can get for them. The 5 phases to become an expert. As you start on this journey, you will travel through 5 phases that will help you find your voice, build your tribe, and change the world. Each phase is important in your journey to help impact as many people as possible with your message. So phase number 1, the dreamer. It starts with a spark. Recently, I read a post on Instagram from my friend Tom Bailu entitled How to Develop Passion, but it could easily have been entitled How to Become an Expert. In this post, he listed 5 things to develop your passion or expertise. First, go experiment with a ton of stuff. Identify things that spark your interest. Engage deeply with those things. As you engage, if it goes from interest to true fascination, then go down the path of gaining mastery. And number 5, fascination plus mastery equals passion. I didn't realize it at the time, but the path he laid out in that post is exactly what I followed to turn my spark and interest in marketing online into the movement that we've created today. I took my little spark, I engaged deeply, became fascinated with it, gained mastery, and it has become my true passion, my life's work. Every great movement has a leader. And this spark is the beginning of your leadership. It's easy to assume that some people are just born leaders and others are not, but that's not true. Leadership and how you become an expert is something that you can learn. It's possible that your biggest fear when you first read the title Expert Secrets was that you aren't born a leader or you don't feel like an expert. When I started on this journey, I had the same feelings. Who was I to lead people when there were so many others who I felt were more qualified? I am by nature extremely introverted. I talk too fast. I barely graduated from high school, but I put in the time to flame my spark, find my voice, and become the expert that my people needed to lead them. For those of you who are nervous about having what it takes to be an expert, I want to spend a few minutes talking with you. My guess is that you are amazing. And I bet that the more amazing you are, the harder it is for you to believe it. Am I right? I've had a really rare opportunity to coach thousands of experts around the world in almost every market you can dream of. What's interesting is when I look at all of these amazing people changing the lives of tens of thousands and even some cases millions of others, most have felt an internal pull to want to serve and help people. It's almost like a voice inside of them telling them that they're destined for greatness. Yet at the same time, they have this other voice consistently telling them that they're inadequate, that they're not enough. They're not smart enough, not focused enough, not thin enough, not experienced enough, not good enough. The strange thing is that often the more they do and the more people they help, the louder the voice of inadequacy becomes. Whether you're just starting this journey or you've been at it for a while, know that the biggest hurdle you're likely to face is being okay with calling yourself an expert. That's equally important to understand is that you're not alone. I really feel for people struggling with that negative inner voice because, in all honesty, that's the way I often feel. I feel like I've been blessed beyond any human being should ever be blessed with on this earth, and I feel like that's this gift I've been given from God is something I must share. In fact, if I don't share it, that would be an injustice to Him and the people I could serve. Yet as I'm out there in the trenches every single day, building companies, working with entrepreneurs, trying to change the world in my own little way, I will still wrestle with these feelings of inadequacy. As I talk to people, I realize that these same feelings keep most people from ever taking on the mantle of an expert. The voice keeps them from stepping up and stepping into that role. And it's a tragedy for a couple of different reasons. First, it deprives them of the experience and the opportunities they should have. And more importantly, it deprives the people whose lives they could change. Those people you could serve by sharing your God-given talents and expert abilities, they might never be reached. So I want to pause here and take a moment. Not so much to convince you that you're an expert, but to give you whatever permission you need to be able to move forward. You have the ability, and I believe the responsibility, to serve others with your gift wherever you are and whatever they are. You've been blessed with talents, ideas, and unique abilities that have gotten you to where you are in life, and these gifts were given to you so you could share them with others. There are people today who need what you have, and they're just waiting for you to find your voice, so you can help them change their lives. What a tragedy for them if you don't develop your voice now. Another problem that people suffer from is that our own unique abilities are things that come second nature to us, so they don't seem that amazing, and we generally dismiss them. My guess is that your superpower won't seem that big of a deal to you. It would be something that comes naturally, something so simple that it couldn't possibly be that important. If you're an amazing cook, that's not that big of a deal to you. But to someone who can't cook, it's a huge deal. Maybe you're good at playing piano, fixing motorcycles, building chicken coops, dancing, or something else. Look at what comes easily to you and what you love to geek out on. And chances are, where your superpower is hiding, just waiting to be developed and shared with the world. I remember seeing an infomercial. Phase number 2, taking on the identity of the reporter. I remember seeing an infomercial in the 90s with a guy named Howard Berg. He was in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's fastest reader. In this infomercial, he would read an entire book in a few short minutes. After reading the book, he would have someone ask him questions to make sure that he had actually read it, and he'd answer those questions with amazing accuracy. Years later, I saw him on Fox News reading the entire healthcare bill live on TV in under an hour. And then he and Neil interview him afterwards about what was in the bill. It was an amazing feat to watch. Around the time I was speaking at an event in Dallas, and one of the event hosts told me after my presentation that Howard was in the audience and wanted to meet me. We quickly became friends, and I even flew him to my office to train my staff on how to speed read. During the launch of the first edition Expert Secrets, I had Howard read my entire book live on Facebook in just 4 minutes and 43 seconds. Then I got to quiz him on what I wrote to make sure that he remembered everything inside. That night, Howard and I went out to dinner. I had a question that I had wanted to ask him for years. He had read more than 30,000 books on almost every topic imaginable, and I wanted to know his thoughts about God. He smiled and taught me a lesson that I'll never forget. He told me that most people would read a book on a topic and then base their beliefs on what they learned. He told me he likes to pick a topic, read a dozen or more books around the topic to see everyone's viewpoints, and then create his own opinion based on seeing all sides of the argument. I spent the next few hours with him listening to his beliefs on God based on hundreds of books that he had read. It was one of the most fascinating conversations of my life. As kids growing up, we're all very teachable. We go to school and become sponges, learning everything that's placed in front of us. And then the worst possible thing happens. We get a degree. To the world, that degree means you know something, but to most people it means you're done learning. Your teachability index is how teachable you are at any given time. And as a kid, your index is high, but after you think you know something, if you're like most people, your index drops to 0 and you stop learning. This is the worst possible thing that can happen to an expert. The next phase in your expert evolution is to start learning everything about your topic from multiple points of view. We need to keep your teachability index high so you're more open to new ideas that you will need to create your own frameworks. The best way to do this for your attractive character is to take on the identity of the reporter and interview everyone you can get access to who has a few chapters ahead of you of where you are now. The fastest way to turn your spark into a fire is to get around others who are already on fire. I started to look for people who were further down the path than I was, and I tried to get them to help my spark grow. There are a lot of ways that I did that, but I'll share with you the 3 that had the biggest impact on my personal growth. Going to live events. I found all the seminars and workshops that were happening in my industry, and I went to every one that I could. This gave me the chance to hear the other experts and speakers on stage so I could quickly start to see what things were being taught and what things were resonating with people the most. I also loved the live events because they gave me the ability to network with other attendees. During the late night networking sessions, I met some amazing experts who helped add to my abilities. I also learned that what things people were struggling with and not finding answers to. This helped pave the ground for me as I started to design my own category, as you'll learn about in secret number 3. starting your own show or podcast. I go into depth about how and why to start your own show in Traffic Secrets because it's the fastest way to build a relationship from the other experts in your market and learn directly from them. Having your own show will open doors to experts you could never get access to otherwise. Interviewing a dozen or more experts who have different perspectives in your market is the equivalent to how Howard Berg would have read a dozen books to see what the actual truth was. The more people you can interview, the better. It will help you discover what gaps are in the market and what frameworks you can create for the new opportunity you will be offering your market. You could launch a summit funnel. In .com Secrets, we talk about the power of summit funnels. Not only can you use this funnel to build a large list of subscribers and followers, it's also an amazing way to interview the top experts in your field. Taking on this role of reporter was, for me, one of, if not the most valuable parts of my education, as well as one of the most rewarding times in my life. I was able to take decades of someone's life's work and get it compressed down into an hour interview with them. It's like having an author read you the cliff notes of their book while you get to ask your own personal questions along the way. The first time I ever interviewed someone was after I read The 12-Month Millionaire by Vince James. The book was about how a 28-year-old kid built a supplement company that generated more than $100 million in just 23 months, all through direct mail, magazines, and online ads. I was so excited that I emailed Vince asking him if I could interview him. Luckily for me, he said yes, and he gave me 6 hours of his time over 2 weekends to ask any questions I had. I made a detailed outline of the questions his book raised in my mind as I read it, and then I asked him the questions and listened as the master told me the answers in his own words. It was amazing. I learned more about marketing during that interview than I would have if I had earned 3 MBAs. He allowed me to have the rights to our interview, and I later sold the recordings of that interview. They were part of the first offer I ever created that sold more than $1 million, and it was the first time I ever qualified for the 2 Comma Club. I got so addicted by learning directly from the authors that I started to message every author of every book I loved, and most of them allowed me to interview them. This is how I met and built relationships with people like Dan Kennedy, Jay Abraham, Mark Joyner, and Joe Vitale. I loved their work. I asked them if I could interview them, and we built relationships while I had them explain to me the answers to my burning questions. The shift from growth to contribution. The first 2 phases are all about personal growth. That's how it typically starts. We get excited about a topic and we start geeking out on it. We learn, we read books, we study examples, we listen to podcasts and consume a lot of information. Next, we put on our reporter hat and interview the people we have been learning from to get customized answers to our questions. But then, at some point, we realize the only way to keep growing isn't to learn more, but instead to shift our focus from personal growth to contribution. It's only by shifting our focus to help others that we continue to grow. As we help others and guide them through what we've learned, we start to grow again. Contribution is the key to continued growth. The first time I truly understood that, I was in high school. I was a state champion and an all-American wrestler. I read and watched everything I could about wrestling. My dad and I would study videos and practice moves every day. We traveled to wrestling camps and got hands-on coaching from the wrestlers and coaches we looked up to. During this phase of my growth, I became a really good wrestler. The summer after my senior year of high school, one of my coaches asked me if I could help coach the wrestling camp. I'd never coached wrestling before, but I thought it would be fun. He had me work with some of the younger wrestlers on moves I was intuitively good at, but they couldn't figure out. I would show them the move, then have them try it. Quickly, I realized just showing the move didn't really help them understand how to do it. I brought the group of kids back together, and I had to look at the move differently. Why didn't it work? Where were my hips? How did I position my elbows, and where did my feet have to go to make the move work? As I broke down the move into smaller pieces to teach the kids, I started to look at the move differently. I saw the pattern and then taught it to them. As I became aware of the details that made them work, I was able to better teach them, and the kids started to have success. But the big benefit that I wasn't expecting was that because I became aware of why the move worked, I was able to do it at a level I hadn't ever been able to before. The insights I gained from coaching also made me a much better athlete. Contributing to other people's success helped me grow more than focusing on my own success. The next phase of growth is the same. First, we must become passionate about the particular topic. We study, we learn, we implement, but eventually we can't grow any more from studying alone. We then shift our focus to helping others with what we've learned. And that contribution helps them, which in turn also helps us continue to grow. So phase number 3, building your own frameworks. As I'm going through the process of growth, I'm looking for patterns of how to achieve a certain result. Each of these patterns is a process or a framework for success. As you get into creating content, telling stories, making offers, and taking on a lot of other roles of an attractive character and expert, having your own framework becomes essential. As you've probably seen in my previous books, each chapter has a framework that I will teach from. You'll notice that this chapter has a 5-part framework for becoming an expert. Secret number 2 is my framework for teaching frameworks. In secret number 3, I'll show you my framework for creating our blue ocean, and so on. Over the years, I've been studying each concept, interviewing others, and testing out the principles in my business and my life. I look for these patterns of what worked. Then I create a process or a framework to make it easier for others to replicate my success. I will go deeper into how to build out each and teach your frameworks in secret number 2, but for now, I just wanted you to see that the end result from your growth phase is to identify patterns for success and then build your own frameworks to help facilitate that success for others. For people who are authors, speakers, coaches, and consultants, either traditional expert businesses, this concept of framework is pretty simple. Oftentimes, service-based businesses or companies sell physical products or software struggle to understand how frameworks work for their type of companies. To understand how to use frameworks for other types of businesses, it's essential to remember that people buy products because they want a certain result. My question for you would be, what is the framework that someone must follow to get that result? Your product is likely just a piece of that framework. The result people are trying to get when they come to me is to grow their companies online. ClickFunnels is a piece of my framework, but it's not the framework. I teach the framework as a guide, and then my products or services become a step inside of that framework of success that I'm giving. If I were a dentist, the result people would want from me is straight white teeth. Sure, my service may be part of that, but what is my framework for getting and keeping a beautiful smile? If I were a dentist, I would build out a framework which would include daily brushing, certain types of toothpaste, whitening strips, tongue scrapers for good breath, supplements to strengthen enamel, checkups twice a year, etc. Do you see how, by switching from a product, such as teeth cleaning, to a framework, I position myself differently than every other dentist? I'm giving people a replicable process for success. And I could then potentially sell a lot of other products that would help serve my clients at a higher level. If I just sold ClickFunnels, I would have been like any of my competitors, but instead I build dozens of frameworks that I'm able to use to guide my dream customers towards the results that they're looking for. In the process, they build a relationship with me because I was the one who gave them the frameworks and positioned myself as an expert. As a byproduct of that, people will often use the products and services I recommend, including my own, from within those frameworks to get their desired result. So step 1 is to create your framework hypothesis. During your first 2 phases of growth as an expert, you'll be spending time learning other people's frameworks for success. It could be by reading their books, listening to their podcasts, or watching them speak at live events. As you transition to your role as a reporter, you have a unique opportunity to dig deeper into their frameworks, ask them personalized questions, and gain a level of mastery in their process that very few people will ever have access to. Your job now as the expert is to become a framework creator. You do this by taking the information you've learned from tons of different sources in other people's frameworks, looking at it and organizing it into your own personal hypothesis for the perfect framework. During this step, you are doing what Bruce Lee meant when he said, research your own experience. Absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is essentially your own. This process is similar to what my friend Howard Berg, the world's fastest reader, did when I asked him his opinion of God. He picks a topic, reads a dozen or more books around the topic to see everyone's point of view, and creates his own opinion based on seeing all sides of the argument. That's your job now, to build your own framework after seeing all the other ways and other opportunities people are using to try to achieve that result. Christopher Vogler, author of The Writer's Journey, said in a lecture, as you listen to anyone's ideas, you'll find, oh, there's a useful idea. That's right, I agree with that, and that, oh, I never thought that before. But at this point, you make up your own ideas and you create your own lingo, your own shared language with the people that you work with. Absorb it, take notes, and pull out a piece here and there that sounds right to your observation of the world. This is all about how you perceive things as an artist, so you've got to make it your own. Your framework hypothesis is the first draft you're going to create based on everything you're learning and the ideas and epiphanies that you've had during your journey of growth. The first thing to do is pretend that you are coaching your first client through this process. That client's you. When you first found your spark of interest in the topic, you are a few chapters ahead of where you were when you began. Sit down and write everything that you would want to teach yourself before you began this journey. Make a bullet list of as many topics as you can think of. The more the better. For example, when I wrote .com Secrets, my initial list of things that I could have taught the younger version of me looked something like this. How to make a funnel that generates leads. The concept of the value ladder. How to use the attractive character in communication with your list. How to use a hook to get attention. A story to increase value, and an offer to close the sale. How to create a webinar funnel. What happens if one of your funnels flops? The secret of high-ticket funnels. How to use book funnels. The 7 phases inside every funnel. How to do a product launch funnel. The who, what, why, and how script. Keep doing bullet points until this list that has everything you need to teach others to guarantee them the results you promised. After you make the list, you need to organize it into an outline in the order that you would teach the bullet points to yourself, similar to a table of contents in a book. In fact, if you look at the table of contents of .com Secrets, you'll see that I took these questions and then broke them down into the sections and chapters. I also did the same process for this book. Section 1, Sales Funnel Secrets. Secret 1, the secret formula. Secret 2, hook story offer. Secret 3, the value ladder. Secret 4, the attractive character, etc. Section 2, the funnels in the value ladder. Secret 8, squeeze and lead funnels. Secret 9, survey funnels. Secret 10, summit funnels. Secret 11, book funnels, etc. If you flip to the table of contents of any nonfiction book, you'll see that the author's framework for getting the result based on the topic their book is teaching about. For me, .com Secrets is my framework for using sales funnels to grow my company. Expert Secrets is my framework for converting online visitors into lifelong customers. And Traffic Secrets is my framework for filling websites and funnels with your dream customers. Each section of the book is also a framework, as is each chapter. The secret formula in chapter number 1 is its own framework. Hook story offer in chapter 2 is also its own framework. In fact, right now, this chapter you're reading is my framework for finding your voice as an expert, and you're reading step 3 of 5 right now. Have you started to see how this works? In the next chapter, I'll be giving you my framework on how to teach frameworks, and after that, we'll move into my next framework and so on. The better you are at creating and teaching frameworks, the more successful you'll become. My hope is that by seeing me doing it over and over again and making you aware of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, you'll be better able to replicate it for your own area of expertise. Step number 2 is to test your framework hypothesis on yourself, the human guinea pig. One of the writers I respect most is Tim Ferriss, author of the 4-Hour Workweek, the 4-Hour Body, the 4-Hour Chef, and more. The reason I like Tim's writing is because he doesn't just learn something and republish it. He studies the best, interviews the top experts on the planet, and becomes a human guinea pig to test out the ideas and see if they work before he publishes them. In fact, Newsweek called him the world's best guinea pig. To better understand how diet and supplementation affect his glucose level, he had a glucometer implanted into his abdomen. He also took more than 1,000 blood tests, often taking them daily to see how different things affected his body. The problem with most experts is they hear a good idea and then they go and regurgitate it as their own. This is not what you're doing when you create your own unique proprietary frameworks. I told people after I wrote .com Secrets that I learned many of these concepts from other people before me, but then I took every one of the ideas and tested them on my own businesses, refined the process, found out what worked and what didn't, learned my own insights, formed my own hypotheses, and tested those hypotheses. From that process, I earned that book. This is a step where you're going to start earning your framework. As I'll show you in the next chapter, you can stand on the shoulders of the giants you've learned your fundamentals from. Always give them credit, but through this process, you'll be creating something unique and proven by your own experience with it. Often as you go through this process, you'll find that parts of your framework hypothesis don't work, or you figure out ways to do it better. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's kind of the goal. To find the holes and figure out better ways to get the outcomes your framework is designed to get. Even after years of teaching certain frameworks, things in the market will change, or I'll learn something new or discover a better way to accomplish what I'm trying to teach others. And I update and change my frameworks, and then when those things happen, anyone looking at the first edition of either .com Secrets or this book will notice hundreds of pages of changes and updates to the frameworks I shared initially. This all came from years of testing the concepts with more and more people and making adjustments as we found them. Step number 3 is to give your framework a proprietary name. After you've created your framework, you need a name for your proprietary system. I like giving an easy name for my framework so people can remember the process by the name itself. But also, it becomes a proprietary methodology that I own. For example, a few of the frameworks I've created that I've become part of my industry jargon because we use them so often are Hook Story Offer, the Perfect Webinar, the Value Ladder, and the Epiphany Bridge. After I name the framework, I then want to have a description of what it is and what it will do for you in the process. So for example, Hook Story Offer, my 3-step system for grabbing your dream customer's attention and getting them to pay you what you're worth. So the framework description should fit into this sentence. Start with your framework name, then my however many step framework or system or process for insert result. At this point, you should have the basic outline for your framework name, its description, and your outline of what you'll be teaching inside each step. Now you have your framework hypothesis. In the next chapter, I'll be showing you how to teach this framework, but for now, you're not ready. This is just a hypothesis, and you have to see if it actually works. So phase number 4, working for free. Serving your future dream clients. After, and only after, you have proven your framework works for you, the human guinea pig, it's time to start testing the process on other people. The next phase is one that most people mistakenly skip. This is where you prove the frameworks that you've created don't just work for you, but will work for other people too. It's also the phase where you have the chance to practice, refine your message and your process, and perfect your frameworks. This is important because at first, chances are that you and your frameworks won't be very good, and that's okay. As my good friend Garrett J. White once said, no matter what you do, in the beginning, it's going to suck. Because you suck. But you'll get better, and you'll suck less. And as you keep doing this, eventually you'll suck so little, you'll actually be good. The next phase is all about testing your frameworks. Even if they have already worked for you, you need to test them and make sure they work for other people too. Whenever I develop something new, the first thing I do is find a beta group of people I can test it with. When I first launched my Inner Circle coaching program, I didn't have a track record as a coach for high-achieving entrepreneurs. Plus, I wanted to charge $50,000 a year for people to join. You could say I had a lot going against me. I could have done what most people do. Put up a website and said, hey, my name's Russell Brunson and I'm the greatest coach in the world. You should hire me. But I didn't do that for a few reasons. First, no one likes to hear you talk about yourself. It's not cool. Second, I knew that it didn't feel right. I wanted to serve some people first and prove that what I teach actually works. One of the first things I teach people is to figure out who their dream customer is. I already had an idea about the types of entrepreneurs I wanted to work with, so I started looking around for those people. And I soon met a guy named Drew Canoli, the owner of Fit Life TV. He was a super cool guy and had a successful business in a market I cared about. He was someone I thought I could help. Eventually, a mutual friend introduced us. I went to Drew's house and talked to him for a bit. He mentioned some of the things that he was struggling with. And then I asked him, would you mind if I came back and just worked for a day for free and see if I could help? Sure, but why would you do that for free? If I'm able to make a big impact on your business, then I'll probably charge a lot in the future, but for now, I just want to see if I can help you. What's the catch? What's in it for you? There's no catch. I think that what you do is awesome, and I think it would be really fun if the stuff I could do could help you at all. Finally, Drew reluctantly agreed to let me come and serve his business for a day. I think he still thought there was some kind of ulterior motive. About a month later, I flew down and met his whole team. We found that their funnels were making money, but they weren't profitable. I helped them fix their current funnels, and we helped build a funnel for the upcoming launch of their new supplement, Organifi. Overall, between the day I spent on Fit Life TV's office and the time going back and forth through email, I think I invested about a month coaching Drew's team through the whole funnel building process for free. At the end of it, they launched their new Organifi funnel, which has gone on to make them tens of millions of dollars per year. I didn't ask Drew for this, but in exchange for my help, he made a video for me talking about the transformation his business went through and the results that I was able to get for him. After I saw that video, I knew I was all ready to launch the Inner Circle because I had proof that the framework I had created worked. I had real results for someone besides myself. My team and I put the video into an online funnel and launched our new coaching program. Before Drew talking about his transformation, people saw Drew talking about his transformation, and almost instantly the program started to grow. We set a cap of about 100 entrepreneurs in my inner circle at any given time, and despite the fact that we charge $50,000 per year to be a member, right now we have waiting lists of people fighting to get in. The goal with this, or any kind of business, is not to lead with, how can I sell my product? Instead, you want to ask, how can I serve my people? And that's a fantastic spot to close the book on this half of the chapter of Expert Secrets from Russell Brunson in this episode of the Business Building Book Club. Thank you guys so much for spending this part of your day with me and joining me every week for a new episode where we dive into some of the best business building books out there. Remember, you can get your own copy of the book that we're reading, Expert Secrets, available for free. All you have to do is pay for the shipping, and you can find out more information at leadershipmade.com/expert-secrets. I'm Coach Molly from Three Pines Leadership. This has been the Business Building Book Club. I will see you next episode for the second half of this chapter. Until then, my friends, remember, I love you. And be excellent to each other.